The bridge of the Eternal Dominion hummed with quiet power. Commander Kyle stood behind the captain's chair, watching the stars through the massive view screen. His gray uniform bore the symbols of the Veltar Empire, earned through 20 years of conquest. The ship was huge, over 3 kilometers long, and armed with weapons that could destroy planets. "Commander, we're entering the outer patrol zone," said Lieutenant Nara from her station. She was young for her rank, only 25, but her skills with sensors were excellent. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel, checking for any signs of life in the empty space around them. Kale nodded. This was routine work. The Empire had been expanding for 300 years, taking over star systems and forcing primitive species to surrender. Most worlds gave up without a fight when they saw Imperial ships. Those that didn't were quickly crushed. "Any activity in the sector?" Kale asked. "Negative, sir. Just the usual background radiation and some old asteroid fields," Nara replied. She paused, then frowned at her screen. "Wait, I'm getting something odd." Kale moved closer to her station. "What kind of odd?" "Unknown energy signature. Small vessel, maybe 50 meters long. The power readings are strange, though. They keep changing. Like the ship is barely holding together." Nara adjusted her controls, trying to get a clearer picture. "I've never seen anything like this before." On the main screen, a fuzzy image appeared. The ship looked like it had been built from scraps. Different metal plates were welded together in a patchwork design. Pipes and cables ran along the outside of the hull. It looked more like a flying junkyard than a real spaceship. "What species built that thing?" Kyle asked. "Unknown, sir. It doesn't match any ship design in our database. The technology level seems very low, but there's something unusual about the power source." Kale studied the image. In his experience, primitive ships meant primitive species. This would probably be another easy victory for the Empire. "Open a communication channel." "Channel open, sir." "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Kale of the Imperial Navy. You are in restricted space. Identify yourself immediately and prepare to be boarded." There was no response. Far away on the strange ship, Captain Dane sat in his pilot seat, staring at the massive Imperial dreadnought on his screen. His hands gripped the controls tightly. At 32, he had spent most of his adult life running from the Empire. His ship, the Shadow's Edge, was indeed made from salvaged parts, but it was much more than it appeared. "They're hailing us," said Yuna from the engineering station. She was 28, with black hair tied back in a practical style. Her hands never stopped moving over her controls, making tiny adjustments to keep their old ship running. "Standard Imperial surrender demand." "Of course it is," Dane muttered. "How long until they figure out what we really are?" "If we're lucky, maybe 5 minutes. If we're not lucky, they already know." Yuna's fingers danced over her keyboard. "I'm reading their sensor scans. They think we're just another primitive ship." "Good. That gives us a chance." Dane looked at his small crew. There were only 4 of them on this mission, but they were all experts at what they did. "Remember, we're just here to gather information. We are not looking for a fight with a dreadnought." "The Empire doesn't usually give people a choice about fighting," said Minho, the communications officer. He was monitoring Imperial broadcasts, listening for any sign that they had been discovered. Back on the Imperial ship, Kale was getting impatient. "They're not responding to our hails." "Sir, should I target their engines?" asked the weapons officer. "Not yet. Scan them first. I want to know what we're dealing with." Nara worked her controls, sending deep scanning beams toward the unknown ship. Getting some strange readings, sir. Their hull is definitely made from different materials, probably salvaged. But there's something odd about their internal systems. What do you mean, odd? The power distribution doesn't make sense. They have way too much energy flowing through their systems for a ship that size, and there are components I can't identify. Kyle frowned. Components you can't identify? That's impossible. Imperial sensors can analyze any technology. I know. Sir, but these readings don't match anything in our database. It's like they've modified standard technology in ways that shouldn't work. On the Shadow's edge, alarms started beeping softly. They're doing a deep scan, Una reported. Should I activate the countermeasures? Not yet, Dane said. Let them think they're seeing everything. The longer they underestimate us, the better. Our chances. Una nodded, but her hands stayed ready over the controls. She had spent years developing systems that could fool Imperial sensors. The Empire relied too much on their technology and not enough on thinking. That was their weakness. Captain, Minho said quietly, I'm picking up Imperial military codes. This isn't just a patrol ship. It's a conquest vessel. They're here to take over this whole sector. Dane's jaw tightened. How many ships? Just the one dreadnought, but it's got enough firepower to destroy every planet in this system. Then we need to warn the others. Dain made his decision. Una, prepare for emergency jump. We're getting out of here. Wait, Una said, checking her screens. They're moving to intercept us. If we try to jump now, they'll lock onto our trail. On the Imperial Bridge, Kale watched the unknown ship beginning to move. They're trying to run. Intercept course. Maximum speed. Yes, sir, the pilot responded. The massive dreadnought began to turn, its engines lighting up like small suns. Sir, Nara said, her voice puzzled. Their energy readings just changed completely. It's like they activated systems we couldn't detect before. What kind of systems? I don't know, but their power output just increased by 300%. Kyle stared at the screen. That's impossible. A ship that size can't generate that much power. Sir, they're moving into a jump position, the pilot reported. Lock weapons on target. If they try to escape, disable their engines. Weapons locked, sir. But as the Imperial gunners prepared to fire, something unprecedented happened. The small ship didn't just jump to hyperspace. It seemed to flicker in and out of reality, appearing in several different places at once. Imperial targeting systems. Couldn't lock onto it. What is that? Kale demanded. I don't know, sir, Nara said, staring at her readings in shock. They're using some kind of micro-jump technology. Short hyperspace hops, too fast for our systems to track. The unknown ship danced around the Imperial dreadnought like a ghost, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. Its movements made no sense according to Imperial understanding of physics. This is impossible, Kyle said. No primitive species has this kind of technology. Sir, Nara said quietly, I don't think they're primitive at all. On the Shadow's edge, Una's hands flew over her controls. Ghost protocol is working perfectly. They can't target us. How long can we keep this up? Dane asked. Not long. This system burns through our power reserves quickly. Then we make our exit now. Take us to jump point 7. Jump point 7? That's right through their firing solution. Trust me. Una nodded and engaged the final sequence. The Shadow's edge flickered one last time, then vanished completely, leaving the massive Imperial dreadnought alone in empty space. Kale stared at the empty view screen for a long moment. In 20 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The Empire's technology was supposed to be superior to everything else in the galaxy, but somehow a small ship built from scraps had just made his dreadnought look foolish. "Sir?" Nara asked quietly. "Run full sensor sweeps of the entire sector," Kyle ordered. "I want to know everything about that ship and who built it." "Yes, sir." But Kyle knew that this was more than just a strange encounter. This was the beginning of something that would change everything the Empire thought it knew about the galaxy. Commander Kyle stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, staring at the empty space where the strange ship had been moments before. His officers worked quietly at their stations, but he could feel their confusion. The Empire's most advanced dreadnought had just been outmaneuvered by what looked like a flying scrap pile. "Report!" Kale ordered. Lieutenant Nara looked up from her sensor station, her face pale. "The ship is completely gone, sir. No trace on any of our scanning frequencies. It's like it never existed." "That's impossible. Ships don't just disappear." "I know, sir, but our sensors show nothing, not even residual energy signatures from their engines." Kale moved to the tactical display. His 20 years of experience told him that every ship left traces when it jumped. To hyperspace, energy patterns, gravitational disturbances, radiation signatures. Something always remained behind. But this time, there was nothing. "What about their last known vector?" he asked. "That's the problem, sir. They didn't have a vector. In the last 30 seconds before they disappeared, our sensors recorded them, in 17 different positions simultaneously." The weapons officer, Commander Vell, shook his head. "The targeting computer couldn't lock on. Every time we tried to fire, the target had already moved." "Show me the sensor logs," Kyle demanded. On the main screen, a replay began. The unknown ship appeared as a small dot, moving normally at first. Then it started to flicker, appearing, and disappearing like a light with a bad connection. The ship seemed to be in multiple places at once, creating a cloud of possible positions around the Imperial dreadnought. "How is this possible?" Kale asked. "Unknown, sir," Nara replied. "The movements don't follow any known laws of physics. They were jumping in and out of hyperspace in distances too short to be possible. Meanwhile, the Shadow's Edge materialized in normal space several light years away. Captain Dane felt the familiar sensation of returning from hyperspace, but his hands were shaking slightly. They had just escaped from the most dangerous situation of his life. "Status report," he called out. Una was already checking her systems. "Ghost protocol worked perfectly. All systems stable. We burned through 40% of our power reserves, but that's within acceptable limits. Any signs of pursuit?" "Negative. The Imperial ship is still sitting where we left them, probably trying to figure out what just happened." Dain allowed himself a small smile. "Then our new toys work even better than we hoped." Minho looked up from his communications station. "Captain, should I send a report to command?" "Yes, but use the emergency channel. This is bigger than we thought." Una stood up from her engineering station and walked over to Dane. "The micro-jump system exceeded all expectations. We were able to maintain 17 different phase states simultaneously. In simple terms, we were in 17 different places at the same time. Their sensors couldn't tell which one was real because technically we all were." Dane nodded. Una had been working on this system for 3 years, combining human engineering with captured Imperial technology. The theory was simple. Instead of making one big jump to hyperspace, make dozens of tiny jumps, too small and too fast for enemy sensors to track. "How many times can we do this before they figure out how to counter it?" Dane asked. "Hard to say. The Empire relies on their technology to solve problems." They don't think creatively. It might take them months to develop countermeasures. Or it might take them days if they get lucky. Back on the Imperial Dreadnought, Kale was receiving reports from every department. None of them made sense. "Sir," said the chief engineer, "our weapon systems functioned perfectly. The problem was target acquisition. The computer couldn't decide which target to shoot at." "What do you mean, which target?" "According to our sensors, there were multiple targets, all in different locations, all reading as the same ship." Kyle rubbed his forehead. "That's impossible." "Yes, sir, but that's what happened." Lieutenant Nara raised her hand. "Sir, I've been analyzing the sensor data. I think I know what they did." "Explain." "They were using micro-jumps, jumping in and out of hyperspace in extremely short distances. Our sensors couldn't keep up with the rapid transitions. Why didn't our computers compensate? Because this technique doesn't exist in our tactical database. The computer didn't know how to respond to something it had never seen before." Kyle walked over to the science station. "Is this technique possible with known technology?" The science officer, a Veltar named Corin, looked uncomfortable. "Theoretically, yes, but it would require incredible precision and power management. The energy requirements alone should make it impossible for a ship that size." "But they did." "Yes, sir. Which means their technology is far more advanced than their ship's appearance suggested." Kale felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Send a priority message to Imperial Command. Tell them we've encountered an unknown species with advanced stealth capabilities." "Sir," Nara interrupted, "there's something else. I've been checking our long-range sensors, and I'm detecting similar energy signatures in 3 other locations in this sector." "More ships?" "Possibly. The signatures are faint, but they match the unknown vessel's power patterns." Kyle stared at the tactical display. "How many ships are we talking about?" "At least 6, maybe more. They're spread across the entire patrol zone. Are they military vessels?" "Unknown, sir. But if they all have the same capabilities as the ship we just encountered..." Kyle didn't need her to finish. "If there were multiple ships with this kind of technology, the Empire could be facing a serious threat." On the Shadow's edge, Dane was reviewing the intelligence they had gathered during their brief encounter. "What did we learn about Imperial capabilities?" he asked. Yuna pulled up her analysis. "Their sensors are extremely powerful but not very flexible. They rely on standard scanning patterns that can be fooled if you know what you're doing." "Weapons?" "Massive firepower but slow targeting systems. They're designed to fight large, slow-moving targets, not small, fast ships." "Command structure?" Minho answered this one. "Very rigid. The captain makes all decisions. No independent thinking from subordinate officers." Dain nodded. "That matches what we expected. The Empire has been winning through superior technology and numbers for so long that they've forgotten how to adapt." "Should we inform the other cells?" Yuna asked. "Yes, but carefully. We don't want to give away our capabilities too early." The Shadow's edge continued through space, heading toward a hidden rendezvous point. Behind them, the Imperial Dreadnought was still trying to understand what had happened. On the Imperial Bridge, Kyle was reading reports from across the sector. Other ships were reporting strange sensor contacts that disappeared before they could be investigated, ships that moved in impossible ways, energy signatures that made no sense. "Sir," Nara said quietly, "I think we're dealing with something bigger than just one unknown ship." "What do you mean?" "The pattern of contacts suggests a coordinated operation. These ships are working together." Kale felt the cold feeling in his stomach get worse. "Are you saying we're facing an organized enemy?" "It's possible, sir." Kale looked out at the stars. The Empire had been expanding for centuries, crushing every civilization they encountered. They had never faced serious resistance before. Their technology was supposed to make them invincible, but now, somewhere in the darkness of space, there were ships that could vanish like ghosts. Ships that used technology the Empire didn't understand. Ships that might belong to an enemy that knew how to fight back. "Continue the patrol," Kale ordered, "and send continuous reports to command. I want every department analyzing this data." "Yes, sir." As the Eternal Dominion resumed its course, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The Empire had just encountered something it had never faced before. An enemy that refused to play by the rules. In the depths of space, the Shadow's Edge disappeared into hyperspace, carrying its crew toward a secret meeting that would determine the future of the galaxy. The Empire's age of easy conquest was about to end. 3 days after the encounter, a new ship arrived at the position of the Eternal Dominion. The vessel was smaller than the Dreadnought, but carried far more advanced sensors and analysis equipment. This was an Inquisitor-class ship, designed for investigating threats to the Empire. Inquisitor Mira stepped onto the bridge of the Eternal Dominion with the confidence of someone who had solved dozens of mysteries for the Empire. She was 45 years old, with sharp eyes and a mind that could see patterns others missed. Her job was to understand threats and eliminate them. "Commander Kale," she said, not bothering with formal greetings. "Show me everything." Kale led her to the tactical display where all the sensor data from the encounter was stored. "We've never seen anything like this, Inquisitor." The ship appeared to be primitive, but its capabilities were far beyond our understanding. Mira studied the display, her eyes moving quickly over the data. Micro jumps through hyperspace, interesting, theoretically possible but requiring incredible precision. She turned to Lieutenant Nara. "You were the sensor operator during the encounter?" "Yes, Inquisitor." "Tell me about the energy signatures you detected." Nara called up her readings on a separate screen. The ship's power output was inconsistent. At first, it seemed normal for a vessel of that size. But when they began their evasive maneuvers, energy output increased by over 300%. That suggests they were running most of their systems at minimal power until the encounter. "Yes, Inquisitor," as if they were trying to appear less capable than they actually were. Mira nodded slowly. "Deception. They wanted us to underestimate them." She moved to another console. "What about the ship's construction? You said it appeared to be made from salvaged materials?" "Yes, Inquisitor. Multiple different alloys and construction techniques. Nothing matched our database of known shipbuilding methods." Mira was quiet for several minutes, studying the data. Finally, she spoke. "This was not a random encounter. This ship was here for a specific purpose." "What purpose?" Kale asked. "Intelligence gathering. They were studying us while we were studying them." Meanwhile, at a hidden base deep in an asteroid field, Captain Dane was making his report to Commander Bin, the leader of the resistance cell. The base was carved out of a large asteroid invisible to Imperial sensors. It had been their home for over 10 years. "The Imperial response was exactly what we predicted," Dane said. "Confusion, followed by standard investigation protocols." Commander Bin was 58 years old, a veteran of countless battles against the Empire. His face showed the scars of those fights, but his mind was still sharp. "And the Ghost Protocol? Performed as expected?" "Better than expected. Yuna's system worked perfectly. The Imperial ship couldn't target us at all." "Good. That means we can move to the next phase." Bin turned to a large display showing star charts of the entire sector. We've identified 17 Imperial patrol routes and 15 supply convoys. It's time to show them that one ship wasn't a fluke. Yuna stepped forward. Sir, I recommend we modify our approach. The Empire will be looking for ships using the same technology now. What do you suggest? Different ships, different techniques. We have 6 cells in this sector, each with their own specialties. Let each one use their own methods. Bin nodded. Agreed. Send the word to all cells. Operation Ghost begins in 48 hours. At the same time, deep within Imperial space, a man named Tay sat at his desk in the Imperial Research Division. To his colleagues, he was a loyal data analyst who had worked for the Empire for 15 years. In reality, he was a human who had managed to hide his identity and work his way into a position where he could help his people. Tay's job was to analyze sensor data from across the Empire, looking for patterns that might indicate threats. Today, he was looking at reports of unusual contacts from 12 different sectors. The reports all described similar incidents. Unknown ships that appeared primitive but demonstrated advanced capabilities. But Tay knew something his Imperial colleagues didn't. These weren't unknown ships. They were human ships, operated by resistance cells that had been hiding throughout the galaxy for decades. The Ghost Protocol was just one of many techniques they had developed. Tay began subtly, altering the data, making small changes that would send Imperial investigators in the wrong direction. A power signature here, a trajectory calculation there. Nothing obvious, but enough to waste their time and resources. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Inquisitor Mira was conducting interviews with the entire crew. She wanted to know everything about the encounter, from every possible perspective. The ship's movements were unlike anything I've seen, the weapons officer reported. It was like trying to hit smoke. Did you detect any communication signals from the vessel? No, Inquisitor. They maintained complete radio silence throughout the encounter. Mira made notes on her personal device. What about after they disappeared? Any residual energy signatures? Nothing. It was as if they had never been there. After interviewing the crew, Mira returned to her own ship and began analyzing the data with her advanced systems. Her ship's computers were designed to find patterns that escaped normal analysis. Computer, analyze all sensor data from the unknown vessel encounter. Look for patterns consistent with known technologies. Analysis complete. No matches found in Imperial Technology Database. Expand search to include all known alien technologies. Analysis complete. No matches found. Mira frowned. Computer, theoretical analysis. What technologies would be required to achieve the observed capabilities? Analysis indicates advanced power management systems, precision hyperspace navigation, and sophisticated sensor jamming capabilities. Such technology would require several decades of focused development. By what level of civilization? Minimum technological level, spacefaring civilization with advanced physics understanding. This was troubling. The Empire's databases included every known spacefaring species in the galaxy. If this technology didn't match any known civilization, it meant they were dealing with either a hidden advanced species or a known species that had been concealing their true capabilities. Computer, analyze all Imperial contact reports for the past 50 years. Look for any mention of ships with similar capabilities. Analysis in progress. While the computer worked, Mira reviewed the broader situation. Reports were coming in from across the Empire of similar encounters. Ghost ships that appeared and disappeared without warning. Ships that defied Imperial technology and tactics. Analysis complete. 47 encounters with unexplained vessel capabilities reported over past 50 years. All dismissed as sensor malfunctions or equipment failures. Mira felt a chill. Display locations of all encounters. A star map appeared, showing the reported encounters scattered across Imperial space. To most observers, they would appear random, but Mira could see the pattern. The encounters were clustered around Imperial supply routes and strategic installations. Computer, overlay Imperial supply routes and military installations on the map. The pattern became clear. Someone had been watching the Empire for decades, studying their movements and capabilities. This wasn't a new threat. It was an old one that had finally decided to reveal itself. Mira opened a communication channel to Imperial Command. Priority. Alpha message for High Command. We are dealing with an organized enemy that has been operating undetected for decades. Recommend immediate fleet-wide alert status. On his hidden base, Commander Bin received a coded message from Tai. The Empire was beginning to understand the scope of the situation, but they were still several steps behind. Mira is smart, Bin told his staff. She'll figure out eventually that we've been watching them for years. Should we accelerate our timeline? Asked Dane. No, let her figure it out. By the time she understands what we're really capable of, it will be too late for them to stop us. Yuna looked up from her workstation. All cells report ready for Operation Ghost. We have 37 ships in position across 9 sectors. Then let's show the Empire what a real ghost looks like, Bin said with a grim smile. Unknown to either side, the investigation had uncovered something that would change everything. The Empire was about to learn that their galaxy was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. And the humans were about to discover that hiding in the shadows was no longer an option. The next phase of the conflict was about to begin, and neither side was fully prepared for what was coming. Deep in the mining tunnels of Kepler Station, Sewell wiped sweat from her forehead and checked the communication device hidden in her equipment pack. The message from Commander Bin was brief but clear. Operation Ghost was beginning. After 30 years of hiding, the human resistance was finally going active. Sol was the leader of Mining Colony 7, a group of 300 humans who had been hiding inside an asteroid mining operation for 2 generations. To the Empire, they were just another workforce of aliens extracting valuable minerals. The Imperial overseers never bothered to look closely at the workers, as long as the quotas were met. Gather the team leaders, Sewell told her assistant, Jin. It's time. Jin nodded and quickly disappeared into the tunnels. Within an hour, 12 people sat around a table in a hidden chamber deep inside the asteroid. These were the leaders of the mining operation, but they were also engineers, former soldiers and specialists who had been preparing for this day their entire lives. We just received authorization for active operations, Sewell announced. The Ghost Protocol worked. Imperial forces can't track our new stealth ships. A woman named Hana leaned forward. She was 34 years old and the colony's chief scientist. For years, she had been working on modifications to Imperial technology, finding ways to turn their own tools against them. How many ships do we have access to? Hana asked. 17 in this sector alone. Each colony has been building and hiding ships for decades. The Empire thinks they're just mining equipment or cargo haulers. What about weapons? That's where you come in, Sewell said, turning to Hana. Your modifications to Imperial energy systems have given us something they don't expect. Hana smiled. The mining lasers can be converted to weapons in less than 6 hours. They're not as powerful as Imperial military weapons, but they don't expect civilian ships to be armed at all. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Jun was walking through the corridors of Imperial Prison Complex Gamma. To the guards, he was just another maintenance worker, fixing air systems and cleaning equipment. But Jun had escaped from this same prison 5 years ago and had been working to get back inside ever since. Jun's real mission was to map the prison's security systems and identify which humans were being held there. The Empire had captured hundreds of humans over the years, but they didn't know what species they were dealing with. Most humans could pass for other alien species if they were careful. Status report, Jun whispered into his communicator during a break. We have identified 43 humans in Prison Complex Gamma, came the reply from his contact. Another 72 in Complex Beta. Security status? Standard Imperial prison protocols. They're not expecting rescue attempts. Jun smiled grimly. The Empire was about to learn that humans didn't abandon their own. Back on the hidden asteroid base, Commander Bin was coordinating with resistance cells across 12 star systems. Each cell had developed its own specialties based on their environment and available resources. Colony 7 has mining equipment that can be weaponized, he noted on his tactical display. Colony 12 has been building communication jammers. Colony 3 has developed new sensor systems. Captain Dane studied the overall picture. It's like we've been building a giant invisible fleet for 30 years. That's exactly what we've been doing, Bin replied. The Empire conquered us because they had better ships and weapons. So we decided to build better ships and weapons. But we did it in secret. Yuna was working at a communication console, coordinating with engineers from different colonies. Hana's power modifications are being shared with all cells. We should be able to upgrade every ship in the network within a week. What about the Imperial investigation? Diane asked. Tay is feeding them false information, but Inquisitor Mira is smart. She'll figure out the truth eventually. How long do we have? Maybe 2 weeks before they understand what they're really facing. At that moment, in her quarters aboard the Inquisitor ship, Mira was reviewing data that didn't make sense. She had reports of unusual activities from mining colonies, cargo haulers that moved in strange patterns, and maintenance ships that appeared in places they shouldn't be. Computer, analyze all civilian ship movements in sectors 7 through 15. For the past 6 months. Analysis complete. 17 anomalies detected. Define anomalies. Civilian ships operating outside normal commercial patterns. Mining ships visiting non-mining locations. Cargo haulers carrying loads that don't match their declared cargo. Mira stared at the data. Computer, are these anomalies consistent with a coordinated operation? Affirmative. Pattern suggests organized activity across multiple sectors. What kind of organized activity? Unknown, but pattern is consistent with military preparation. Mira felt a cold realization washing over her. Computer, estimate the number of ships involved in this coordinated activity. Based on available data, minimum estimate 200 ships. Maximum estimate over 1,000 ships. Mira sat back in her chair. The Empire wasn't dealing with a few ghost ships. They were facing an entire hidden fleet. On Mining Colony 7, Sol was addressing her people for the first time in years about their real purpose. For 30 years, we've pretended to be just another alien workforce, she said to the assembled crowd. We've hidden our technology, our capabilities, and our true nature. But that time is over. The crowd was silent, but Sul could see the determination in their faces. These people had been born into hiding, but they had never forgotten what they were fighting for. Each of you has a skill that the Empire needs, Sul continued. We mine their asteroids, fix their equipment, transport their goods. We are invisible to them because they think we're just primitive aliens. But we are about to show them what humans can really do. A young man named Quan raised his hand. What about retaliation? If we reveal ourselves, they'll destroy us. They'll try, Sewell admitted. But we're not the same helpless refugees our parents were. We've learned their technology. We've studied their weaknesses. And most importantly, we're not alone anymore. On the main display, Sewell showed a map of human colonies throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked active resistance cells, and there were hundreds of them. We are everywhere, Sewell said. In their factories, their mines, their transport systems. We fix their computers and maintain their ships. The Empire depends on us, and they don't even know it. Meanwhile, June was putting the final pieces of his plan into place. His maintenance access gave him entry to almost every part of the prison complex, and he had been carefully mapping guard rotations and security protocols. Phase 1 begins tomorrow, he reported to his team. We'll create a power failure in Section 7 and extract 12 humans during the confusion. What about security cameras? Hana's jamming technology will give us a 20-minute window. More than enough time. Escape route? A modified cargo hauler will be waiting at Docking Bay 3. To the guards, it will look like a routine supply. Pick up! As Jun finished his preparations, he thought about the bigger picture. The prison rescue was just one small part of Operation Ghost. Across the galaxy, human resistance cells were preparing to reveal themselves for the first time in decades. Back on the asteroid base, Commander Bin was receiving final reports from all cells. All ships are in position, Yuna reported. We have vessels near every major Imperial installation in 12 sectors. Communication networks are ready, added Minho. We can coordinate simultaneous operations across thousands of light years. What about our ace in the hole? Bin asked. Dain smiled. Tay confirms that Imperial Command still doesn't know what species they're dealing with. They think we're just another alien civilization. Good. Let's keep it that way until it's too late for them to adapt. Bin turned to the main tactical display, which showed the positions of hundreds of human ships throughout Imperial space. For 30 years, they had been patient. They had hidden, learned, and prepared. Now, it was time to act. Send the signal. To all cells, Bin ordered. Operation Ghost is now active. It's time to show the Empire that Earth's children are still alive. Across the galaxy, hidden human colonies received the message. Mining operations that were really shipbuilding facilities. Transport companies that were actually intelligence networks. Maintenance crews that were sabotage specialists. The Empire had conquered Earth and scattered its people to the stars. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that humans would stay conquered. Instead, humans had done what they did best. They had adapted, learned, and prepared to fight back. The age of hiding was over. The age of resistance had begun. Inquisitor Mira stood in the command center of her ship, staring at a galaxy-wide map that showed dozens of red markers. Each marker represented a confirmed encounter with the ghost ships over the past week. The pattern was becoming clear, and it terrified her. Inquisitor, her aide reported, we have confirmation of simultaneous attacks on Imperial installations in 7 different sectors. Attacks? Mira asked sharply. Not direct attacks, but systematic infiltrations. Someone is gathering intelligence on every major Imperial facility. Mira studied the data. Show me the details. Mining Colony 7 reported equipment malfunctions that shut down their operations for 6 hours. During that time, their communication systems were accessed by unknown parties. Colony 12 had similar problems. So did Transport Hub 5 and Refinery Station 9. Someone is mapping our entire infrastructure, Mira realized. Computer, analyze the timing of these incidents. Analysis complete, All incidents occurred within a 12-hour window. Coordination suggests a single controlling intelligence. Mira felt her blood turn cold. Computer, estimate the minimum number of operatives required for this level of coordination. Based on available data, minimum 500 operatives, maximum estimate over 2,000 operatives. 2,000, Mira whispered. We're not dealing with a small terrorist group. This is an army. Meanwhile, Captain Dane was leading his team through the corridors of Imperial Supply Station Delta. They wore stolen maintenance uniforms and carried fake identification that would pass any routine security check. Their mission was simple: access the station's central computer and download Imperial fleet movement data. Security patrol coming, warned Yuna through their communicators. 3 guards, heading your way. Dane and his team immediately began, working on a nearby power junction, looking like routine maintenance workers. The guards passed without giving them a second look. Clear, Yuna reported. You have a 10-minute window to reach the computer core. Dane's team moved quickly through the station. They had studied the blueprints for weeks, memorizing every corridor and access panel. The Imperial computer core was protected by multiple security systems, but humans had learned to think differently than the Empire expected. Minho, jam there. Sensors, Dane ordered. Yuna, can you access their computer through the maintenance interface? Already working on it, Yuna replied, connecting a small device to a service panel. Give me 3 minutes. While Yuna worked, Dane watched the corridor for guards. This was their 15th mission in 2 weeks, and each one had been successful. The Empire's security was designed to stop external attacks, not infiltration by people who looked like their own workers. Got it, Yuna announced, downloading fleet movement schedules, supply routes, and communication codes. How long? 2 minutes. Those 2 minutes felt like hours. But finally, Yuna disconnected her device. Complete. We now have Imperial fleet positions for the next month. The team made their way back to their ship, a modified cargo hauler that looked like dozens of others docked at the station. Within an hour, they were in hyperspace, carrying intelligence that would help coordinate the next phase of human operations. At the same time, Jun was executing his prison rescue mission. The power failure he had planned worked perfectly, plunging Section 7 of the prison complex into darkness. Emergency lighting provided just enough illumination for his team to move through the corridors. Guard station is empty, reported his teammate Rena. They're all dealing with the power failure. Jun accessed the cell controls using codes he had stolen weeks earlier. Getting our people out now. 12 humans emerged from their cells, confused but ready to follow orders. They had been prisoners for years, but they hadn't forgotten their training. This way, June whispered, leading them toward the service corridors. We have a ship waiting. The escape took exactly 18 minutes, just under their 20-minute window. By the time Imperial guards realized what had happened, the rescue ship was already jumping to hyperspace. 12 more humans freed, Jun reported to Commander Bin. Intelligence gathered from the prison computers shows locations of 6 more facilities where our people are being held. Excellent work, Bin replied. But be careful. The Empire is starting to adapt their security procedures. This was true. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Commander Kyle was implementing new security protocols, based on Inquisitor Mira's analysis. All maintenance workers must now be escorted by armed guards, Kyle announced to his officers. All civilian ships entering Imperial space must submit to detailed inspections. Lieutenant Nara looked concerned. Sir, those procedures will slow. down our operations significantly. Better slow than infiltrated, Kale replied. We're dealing with an enemy that thinks like us, acts like us, and looks like us. Traditional security measures aren't enough. But even as the Empire adapted, the humans were adapting faster. At Mining Colony 7, Sol was implementing Hana's newest innovation, ships that could change their energy signatures to mimic different vessel types. Watch this, Hana said, demonstrating her new system. On the screen, their modified mining ship appeared to transform into a cargo hauler, then a passenger transport, then back to a mining vessel. How is this possible? Sul asked. I studied Imperial sensor technology for 20 years, Hana explained. Their systems identify ships based on energy patterns and structural signatures. If you can fake those patterns, you can become invisible. How? Many ships can be upgraded? All of them. The modification is simple once you understand the principle. This development changed everything. Human ships could now move through Imperial space appearing to be whatever type of vessel the situation required. A warship could look like a cargo hauler. A spy ship could appear to be a civilian transport. Inquisitor Mira was beginning to understand the scope of the problem when she received a report that made her blood run cold. Inquisitor, her communications officer reported, we have confirmed ghost ship encounters in 47 sectors. 47? That's impossible. Yes, Inquisitor, but the reports are verified. Someone has ships operating throughout the entire Empire. Mira stared at the galactic map. Red markers covered nearly a third of Imperial space. Computer analysis. Based on observed activities, estimate the total size of the enemy fleet. Analysis. Indicates minimum fleet size, 800 vessels. Maximum estimate, over 3,000 vessels. Mira sat down heavily. 3,000 ships. Where did they come from? Unknown, Inquisitor. However, analysis of encounter reports suggests these vessels have been operating in Imperial space for decades. Decades? Why didn't we detect them before? Analysis indicates previous encounters were dismissed as sensor malfunctions or misidentified civilian traffic. Mira realized the terrible truth. The Empire hadn't been infiltrated recently. They had been infiltrated for years, maybe decades. An entire enemy fleet had been hiding among their civilian traffic, and no one had noticed. Send an immediate priority message to High Command, Mira ordered. We are dealing with a coordinated enemy force of unknown origin with at least 3,000 ships operating throughout Imperial space. Meanwhile, Tay was working frantically at his desk in the Imperial Research Division. Mira's investigation was getting too close to the truth. He needed to buy the Resistance more time. Tay began subtly altering the data being sent to Imperial Command. He changed ship counts, modified location reports, and introduced false patterns that would send Imperial forces to the wrong sectors. It was dangerous work, but it was buying precious time for human operations. Analysis complete, Tay reported to his Imperial supervisor. Enemy fleet estimated at 200 ships maximum, concentrated in outer rim sectors. The lie was subtle, but effective. Imperial Command would focus their attention on the wrong areas while human operations continued elsewhere. But Tay knew his time was running out. Mira was too smart to be fooled forever. Soon she would figure out that someone was feeding false information to Imperial Command. On the asteroid base, Commander Bin was coordinating the largest resistance operation in human history. Hundreds of ships were moving simultaneously, gathering intelligence, rescuing prisoners, and preparing for something even bigger. Phase 2 is ready to begin, Una reported. All cells confirm they have the intelligence needed for coordinated strikes. What about Imperial response? Bin asked. They're confused and reactive, Dain replied. Mira is smart, but she's working with false information thanks to Tai. Imperial forces are searching in the wrong places. Good. But this can't last forever. Eventually, they'll figure out what we really are. How long do we have? Sewell asked via communication link. Maybe a week, Bin estimated. After that, they'll know they're fighting humans. Then we move to Phase 3 immediately, Sewell suggested. No more hiding. Bin nodded grimly. Agreed. Send the word to all cells. Prepare for full revelation. It's time to show the Empire that Earth's children are not only alive, but ready to take back what was stolen from us. Across the galaxy, human resistance cells received the message. The time for hiding was almost over. Soon, the Empire would learn that they had been living with their greatest enemy for decades, and that enemy was ready to fight back with everything they had learned. High Admiral Voss stood before the Imperial War Council, his face grim as he delivered the worst news in the Empire's 300-year history. We are facing a coordinated enemy force of unknown origin, he announced to the assembled commanders. Intelligence suggests at least 3,000 hostile vessels operating throughout Imperial space. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. General Cran, commander of the Third Fleet, stood up. That's impossible. No enemy force could hide that many ships from our sensors. Yet they have, Voss replied coldly. Inquisitor Mira's investigation has confirmed ghost ship encounters in over 60 sectors. These are not random pirates or smugglers. This is an organized military force. Admiral Tess, a veteran of the Outer Rim campaigns, studied the tactical display. What do we know about their capabilities? They use advanced stealth technology that our sensors cannot track. Their ships appear to be constructed from salvaged materials but demonstrate capabilities beyond our current understanding. Commander Kyle, attending via communication link from the Eternal Dominion, added his report. I've encountered these ships personally. They move in ways that should be impossible. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto them. Then we adapt our tactics, declared General Cran. If we can't track them, we force them into the open. How do you propose we do that? Asked Admiral Tess. We target their support network. These ships need bases, supply lines, and recruitment sources. We find those and destroy them. High Admiral Voss nodded grimly. Operation Iron Fist is hereby authorized. All Imperial forces will conduct systematic sweeps of suspected enemy strongholds. Any civilian facility that cannot account for its activities will be investigated with extreme prejudice. The order went out across the Empire within hours. Imperial fleets began converging on mining colonies, transport hubs, and industrial stations. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. At Mining Colony 7, Sol watched Imperial warships approaching on her sensors. She had known this moment would come, but seeing it happen still sent a chill down her spine. All non-essential personnel to the evacuation ships, she ordered. Begin emergency protocols. Hana was frantically destroying sensitive equipment. How long until they arrive? 20 minutes. Can you complete the data wipe? Already done. But Sol, we have 300 people here. The evacuation ships can only carry half of them. Sewell felt the weight of command pressing down on her. Then we make a stand. Signal all ships to defensive positions. The Imperial fleet that arrived at Mining Colony 7 expected to find a routine civilian installation. Instead, they encountered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about their enemy. Admiral, reported the fleet's sensor officer, the mining facility is heavily fortified. I'm reading military grade, shields and weapon systems. Admiral Chen studied the readings in shock. How is a civilian mining operation equipped with military hardware? Unknown, sir, but they're powering up weapons and targeting our ships. Saul stood in the command center of her hidden base, watching Imperial ships take attack positions. Her people had worked for 30 years to build this sanctuary, and she wasn't going to surrender it without a fight. All ships? This is Seoul. They think we're just another alien colony. Let's show them what humans can do. The battle that followed shocked the Imperial forces. Mining ships that should have been defenseless revealed hidden weapons. Transport vessels deployed advanced shields. Worker shuttles moved with military precision. They're using our own technology against us, Admiral Chen reported to Imperial Command. But they've modified it in ways we don't understand. The fight lasted 6 hours. The Imperial fleet had overwhelming firepower, but the human defenders used tactics that confused and frustrated their attackers. Ships appeared and disappeared using Yuna's ghost protocols. Weapons fired from unexpected angles. Mining lasers cut through Imperial armor like it was paper. In the end, the Imperial fleet won through sheer numbers, but the cost was shocking. 3 Imperial destroyers were heavily damaged, and 1 cruiser was completely destroyed. The civilian mining colony had fought like a military installation. Evacuate all surviving personnel for interrogation, Admiral Chen ordered. I want to know what species we're dealing with. But when Imperial troops entered the facility, they found it almost empty. The defenders had evacuated through hidden tunnels, leaving behind only automated systems and destroyed equipment. Similar battles were happening across the Empire. At Transport Hub 12, Commander Bin coordinated a fighting withdrawal that saved 2,000 human civilians while making the Imperial forces pay for every meter of ground. This isn't a normal enemy, reported General Cran after reviewing the battle reports. Their tactics are too sophisticated. Their technology is too advanced. Someone has been teaching them how to fight us. At Prison Complex Gamma, Jun was in the middle of his largest rescue operation when Imperial reinforcements arrived. Instead of aborting the mission, he made a decision that would change everything. All teams, this is Jun. We're going to rescue everyone. Every human in this complex gets out today. Jun, that's impossible, replied his teammate Rena. There are over 200 prisoners, and we only have ships for 50. Then we take their ships. What followed was the largest prison break in Imperial history. Human prisoners fought alongside their rescuers, using improvised weapons and insider knowledge of the facility. They captured Imperial shuttles and transport ships, turning the enemy's own vessels against them. The prisoners are escaping in our own ships, reported the prison commander to Imperial Command. They know our security codes, our procedures, everything. How is that possible? I don't know, sir. It's like they've been studying us for years. The prison break was successful, but it revealed something that terrified Imperial Command. The enemy didn't just have advanced technology. They had detailed knowledge of Imperial procedures, security codes, and tactical doctrine. Inquisitor Mira was analyzing the data from all these encounters when she finally understood the truth. Computer, cross-reference, all enemy encounters with known alien species. Analysis complete. No matches found. Computer, analyze enemy tactics and compare with historical data. Analysis indicates tactics similar to those used by... The computer paused. Data corrupted. Unable to complete analysis. Mira frowned. Data corruption was extremely rare in Imperial systems. Computer, run diagnostic on data corruption. Diagnostic complete. Corruption appears to be intentional. Someone has been altering historical records. A cold realization washed over Mira. Computer, search for all references to species designation human in Imperial databases. Search complete. No records found for species designation human. That's impossible. Search for planet designation Earth. Search complete. No records found for planet designation Earth. Mira sat back in her chair, her mind racing. Someone had systematically removed all references to a species called humans from Imperial databases. But why would the Empire erase all records of a conquered species? Computer, access archived military records from 50 years ago. Access denied. Archives classified above your security level. For the first time in her career, Mira encountered information that was classified beyond her reach. As an Inquisitor, she had access to almost everything in the Empire. What could be so sensitive that even she couldn't see it? Meanwhile, Tay was working desperately to maintain his cover. The battle reports were making it clear that the Empire was fighting an organized enemy with advanced technology and detailed knowledge of Imperial systems. Analysis complete, Tay reported to his supervisor. Enemy force estimated at 500 ships maximum. Technology appears to be modified Imperial equipment. The lies were getting harder to maintain. Soon, someone would figure out that the data being fed to Imperial Command didn't match the reports from the field. On the asteroid base, Commander Bin was coordinating the evacuation of exposed human colonies while preparing for the next phase. Of operations, how many people did we lose? He asked grimly. Mining Colony 7 was completely evacuated, Sewell reported. We lost the facility, but all personnel escaped. Transport Hub 12 is destroyed, but we saved everyone, added another commander. The prison breaks were successful, Jun reported. We rescued over 800 humans from 12 different facilities. Bin nodded. The Empire is responding exactly as we predicted. They're using overwhelming force against civilian targets, which makes them look like the monsters they really are, Sewell observed. Exactly. Every attack on a civilian facility creates more sympathy for our cause among other species. Yuna looked up from her communication console. Sir, we're receiving messages from non-human species throughout Imperial space. They're asking about our technology and tactics. What kind of messages? Requests for assistance. Other oppressed species want to know how we're fighting back so effectively. Bin smiled grimly. Then the Empire's brutal response is working in our favor. Send representatives to coordinate with friendly species. It's time to expand this resistance beyond just humans. High Admiral Voss reviewed the reports from Operation Iron Fist with growing concern. The Empire had struck hard against suspected enemy positions, but the results were troubling. The secret Imperial facility on Kepler Prime hummed with frantic activity. Inquisitor Mira had finally gained access to the classified archives, and what she found there changed everything she thought she knew about the Empire. Computer, display. All records related to the Terra campaign 50 years ago. The screen filled with data that had been hidden from the galaxy for half a century, images of a blue and green planet, records of a species called humans, military reports from the conquest of Earth, estimated human population at time of conquest, 8 billion individuals, the computer reported. Post-conquest status, scattered throughout Imperial space as labor force. Mira stared at the records in shock. Computer, why were these records classified? Classification order issued by High Command. Reason, potential security threat if enemy capabilities became known to other species. What enemy capabilities? Analysis of human psychology indicated high probability of organized resistance if population remained concentrated. Recommendation: scatter population to prevent coordination. Mira felt sick as the truth became clear. The Empire had deliberately hidden the existence of humans because they were afraid of them. They had scattered an entire species across the galaxy to prevent them from organizing. And now, 50 years later, the humans had done exactly what the Empire feared most. Computer, current estimated human population throughout Imperial space. Based on reproduction rates and survival data, approximately 30 million individuals. 30 million, Mira whispered. They're everywhere. Meanwhile, on the hidden asteroid base, Commander Bin was preparing for the most important meeting in human history. Representatives from 17 different species had requested secret conferences with the human resistance. They want to know how we're fighting back, Una reported. Word is spreading throughout the galaxy that someone is successfully resisting the Empire. What species are we talking about? Bin asked. Mining colonies from the Centauri sector, transport workers from the Outer Rim, factory workers from the inner worlds, all species that the Empire considers too primitive to be a threat. Dane looked up from his tactical display. Just like they considered us too primitive to be a threat. Exactly. The Empire's arrogance is their weakness. They never consider that oppressed species might be intelligent enough to organize. At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the base. Minho looked up from his sensor station, his face pale. Commander, we have a problem. Imperial fleet approaching. It's massive. On the main screen, dozens of Imperial warships appeared, led by a dreadnought even larger than the Eternal Dominion. This was the Emperor's Wrath, flagship of High Admiral Voss himself. How did they find us? Bin demanded. Unknown, sir, but they're deploying in attack formation. Sol's voice came through the communication system from her evacuation ship. Commander, we can still get most of our people out. The evacuation fleet is ready. No, Bin said firmly. If we run now, other species will think we're just another group of cowards. We make our stand here. Sir, we're outnumbered 50-1, Dane protested. Then we make sure the whole galaxy sees how humans die. But Una was working frantically at her console. Wait, Commander, I have an idea. What if we don't fight them the way they expect? What do you mean? They're expecting a conventional battle, ship against ship, firepower against firepower. But we've never fought conventionally. Hana's voice joined the conversation from her research ship. Una's right. We have advantages they don't know about. The Ghost Protocol, the sensor jamming, the power modifications. Against 50 Imperial warships? No, against one Imperial Admiral who thinks like every other Imperial officer. Bin understood immediately. You're talking about turning their own tactics against them. Exactly. They brought overwhelming force because that's how the Empire always wins. But what if overwhelming force becomes a disadvantage? On the bridge of the Emperor's Wrath, High Admiral Voss studied the asteroid field where his sensors indicated the enemy base was hidden. Admiral, reported his sensor officer, I'm detecting multiple ships in the asteroid field, but the readings are confused. How many ships? Difficult to determine, sir. The asteroids are interfering with our sensors. Commander Kyle, who had been assigned to the flagship for this operation, studied the tactical display. Sir, I recommend caution. This enemy has demonstrated unusual capabilities. Noted, Commander, but they're facing the full might of the Imperial Navy now. No resistance movement can withstand this kind of firepower. Lieutenant Nara, also transferred to the flagship, was monitoring communications. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple signals from the asteroid field. They appear to be coordinating something." "Let them coordinate," Voss replied confidently. "It won't help them." But as the Imperial fleet moved into attack position, something unprecedented happened. The asteroids themselves began to move. "Sir," the sensor officer reported in confusion, "the asteroids are changing position." "That's impossible. Asteroids don't move on their own." "Nevertheless, sir, they're moving into formations around our fleet." Kyle stared at the display in growing alarm. "Admiral, those aren't asteroids, they're ships, camouflaged ships." The truth became clear as hundreds of hidden vessels revealed themselves. Ships that had been disguised as asteroids, space debris, and mining equipment suddenly powered up their engines and weapons. The Imperial fleet found itself surrounded by an enemy force that outnumbered them 3-1. "How is this possible?" Voss demanded. "Sir," Nara reported, "I'm reading power signatures consistent with the ghost ships we've encountered, but there are hundreds of them." In the hidden command center, Bin watched as his carefully planned trap was sprung. "All ships, this is Commander Bin. Today, we show the galaxy that humans are not extinct. Today, we show them that Earth's children remember how to fight." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Empire had ever experienced. Human ships appeared and disappeared using ghost protocols. They coordinated attacks with precision that confused Imperial tactical computers. Most importantly, they fought with a desperation and determination that Imperial forces had never faced before. "They're using our own tactics against us," Kyle reported to Admiral Voss. "But they're modifying them in ways our computers can't predict." "Then we use overwhelming firepower," Voss ordered. "All ships, maximum weapons." But as the Imperial fleet opened fire, they discovered another human innovation. The enemy ships were sharing shield power, creating defensive networks that could withstand even Imperial dreadnought weapons. Yuna's voice came through the communication network to all human ships. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to capture them." "Capture them?" Dane asked from his fighter. "Think about it. What's more valuable, destroying Imperial ships or taking them intact?" The human attack pattern changed immediately. Instead of trying to destroy Imperial vessels, they targeted engines and weapon systems. Boarding parties launched from hidden assault ships, using insider knowledge of Imperial ship designs to quickly overwhelm security teams. "Sir," Kale reported in shock, "they're boarding our ships, and they know exactly where to go." "How is that possible?" "They know our ship designs better than we do." This was true. Humans had been working on Imperial ships for decades, maintaining their systems and learning their weaknesses. Now they used that knowledge to systematically disable the Imperial fleet. On the asteroid base, Bin coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. "Status report. 12 Imperial ships captured intact," Sul reported. 8 more disabled and ready for boarding. "Casualties?" "Minimal on our side. We're taking prisoners instead of killing them." "Good. We want the galaxy to see the difference between how we fight and how the Empire fights." As the battle continued, something even more significant was happening. Ships from other species began arriving in the system, drawn by reports of the massive confrontation. They came as observers, but what they saw changed the balance of power in the galaxy. "Commander," Minho reported, "we have incoming ships from 17 different species. They're not participating in the battle, but they're watching." "Let them watch," Bin replied. "Let them see that the Empire can be defeated." On the Emperor's wrath, Admiral Voss was facing the most humiliating defeat in Imperial history. Half his fleet was captured or disabled, and the enemy had achieved this victory, using tactics that made no sense according to Imperial doctrine. "Sir," Nara reported quietly. "Incoming transmission from the enemy commander." "Put it through." Commander Bin's face appeared on the screen, and Voss was shocked to see a species he recognized but had never expected to encounter as an enemy. "Hi. Admiral Voss," Bin said calmly. "I am Commander Bin of the Human Resistance. I believe we need to talk." "Human," Voss whispered. "You're the species from Terra." "Yes, the species you scattered across the galaxy 50 years ago. The species you thought you had destroyed." "That's impossible. Humans were classified as a labor species. You don't have the technology for this kind of operation." "We learned, Admiral. We learned from you. Every human working on your ships, in your factories, in your mines was learning. For 50 years we've been learning. The Imperial War Council chamber had never been so quiet. High Admiral Voss stood before the assembled commanders, but for the first time in the Empire's history, he was not reporting a victory. The human resistance has demonstrated capabilities that exceed our previous understanding, Voss announced. They have successfully captured or disabled 60% of our fleet using tactics we cannot counter. Emperor Zan, ruler of the Veltar Empire for 30 years, leaned forward in his throne. "Explain to me how a scattered labor species has defeated our most advanced fleet." "Your Majesty, the humans were never just a labor species. Our own classified records show that we scattered them specifically because we feared their organizational capabilities." "And now those fears have been realized?" "Yes, Your Majesty. The humans have spent 50 years learning our technology while we forgot they existed. They know our weaknesses better than we know them ourselves." General Cran, who had been silent throughout the meeting, finally spoke. "What are their demands?" "Recognition as a sovereign species, the right to establish their own territories, an end to their classification as a labor force." "And if we refuse?" Voss hesitated. "Sir, I believe they have the capability to bring down the Empire." The statement sent shockwaves through the Council. Never in 300 years had anyone suggested that the Empire could be defeated. "Impossible," declared Admiral Tess. "We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, and they have 30 million operatives embedded throughout our entire civilization," Voss replied. "They maintain our ships, work in our factories, transport our goods. If they coordinate a system-wide rebellion..." The Emperor was silent for several minutes, considering the implications. Finally, he spoke. "Arrange a meeting with this Commander Bin. We will negotiate." Meanwhile, in the captured Imperial ships, human crews were making an astounding discovery. Inquisitor Mira, now a prisoner aboard her own vessel, watched in fascination as humans operated Imperial technology with greater skill than Imperial officers. "How do you know our system so well?" she asked Yuna, who was examining the ship's computer core. "We built them," Yuna replied simply. "Humans designed and manufactured most of the technology the Empire uses. You just never knew it." "That's impossible. Is it? Who do you think maintains your computers, repairs your engines, upgrades your sensors? The Empire uses alien labor for everything, but you never asked which aliens were doing the work." Mira realized the stunning truth. The Empire's technological superiority was built on human knowledge and human labor. The masters had been depending on their slaves for everything, without ever realizing it. "You could have destroyed us at any time," Mira said quietly. Yes, Yuna admitted. But destruction was never our goal. We just wanted to survive. On the asteroid base, Commander Bin was coordinating with representatives from dozens of species who had witnessed the battle. The victory over the Imperial fleet had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Centauri mining colonies are requesting assistance with organizing their own resistance, Saul reported. The transport workers in the Outer Rim want to know how. We developed our stealth technology, added June. Factory workers throughout the inner worlds are asking for coordination protocols, said Hana. Bin studied the galactic map, which now showed resistance movements throughout Imperial space. The Empire created this situation themselves. By oppressing so many species, they ensured that our victory would inspire others. Captain Dane looked up from his tactical console. Commander, incoming transmission from Imperial Command. They want to arrange negotiations, do they now? Bin smiled grimly. Tell them we'll meet, but the negotiations will be conducted in neutral space, with representatives from all the species they've oppressed. The meeting took place 1 week later, in the independent system of Haven Prime, far from Imperial space. The site was chosen specifically because it was populated by refugees from Imperial expansion, making it symbolically appropriate. Emperor Zan arrived aboard his personal flagship, accompanied by his most senior advisors. He had never negotiated with an enemy before, because the Empire had never faced an enemy that could not be simply conquered. Commander Bin arrived aboard the Shadow's Edge, but he was not alone. Representatives from 47 different species accompanied him, all of them victims of Imperial expansion who had been inspired by human resistance. The negotiations took place on a neutral space station, with both sides maintaining their fleets at a respectful distance. When Emperor Zan first saw Commander Bin in person, he was struck by how ordinary the human looked. This unremarkable being had just defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Commander Bin, the Emperor said formally, you have achieved something unprecedented. The Empire wishes to discuss terms. Your Majesty, Bin replied with equal formality. Humans do not seek the destruction of the Empire. We seek the right to exist as free beings. What exactly are you proposing? Bin activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Humanity requests recognition as a sovereign species, with the right to establish settlements in unclaimed systems. We also request that all humans currently classified as laborers be given the choice to remain in Imperial space as free citizens or to join human settlements. And in return, humans will continue to provide technical expertise to the Empire, but as partners rather than slaves. We will also share our innovations in technology and tactics. Emperor Zan studied the proposal. This is reasonable. But what about the other species represented here? The representative from the Centauri colonies spoke up. We request the same terms. Recognition as sovereign species with the right to self-determination. One by one, the other species made similar requests. The Empire was facing not just a human rebellion, but a galaxy-wide independence movement. This would fundamentally change the nature of the Empire, Admiral Tess observed. Yes, Bin agreed. Instead of an empire built on conquest and oppression, it would become a confederation of free species working together. Emperor Zan was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he spoke. What guarantee do we have that this confederation would not eventually turn against the Veltar? Because, Bin replied, humans have learned something that the Empire never understood. Diversity makes us stronger. We don't want to replace your tyranny with our own. We want to build something better. To demonstrate this point, Bin gestured to his delegation. Look at my advisors. Captain Dane specializes in tactics. Engineer Yuna handles technology. Scientist Hana develops new innovations. Each brings different skills, different perspectives. The Empire tries to make everyone the same. We celebrate our differences. The negotiations continued for 3 days. In the end, an agreement was reached that stunned the galaxy. The Veltar Empire agreed to transform itself into the Galactic Confederation, with each species granted autonomy within their own territories while maintaining economic and technological cooperation. The transition was not immediate or easy. There were Imperial officers who refused to accept the new order and had to be removed from command. There were human extremists who wanted revenge rather than cooperation. But gradually, a new system emerged. 6 months after the Battle of the Asteroid Field, as historians would later call it, Captain Dane stood on the bridge of the Shadow's Edge as it prepared to depart for unexplored space beyond the galaxy's rim. "Where are we going?" asked Yuna, who had chosen to join the exploration mission. "To find other civilizations," Dane replied. "To see if there are other species out there who need to learn that empires can be defeated. And if we find hostile aliens, then we teach them the same lesson we taught the Veltar, that trying to conquer free beings is a losing proposition." The Shadow's Edge jumped to hyperspace, carrying its message of hope to the unknown regions beyond. Behind them, the galaxy was changing in ways that would have been unimaginable just a year before. On the former Imperial capital world, now the capital of the Galactic Confederation, Inquisitor Mira was adapting to her new role as Director of Interspecies Relations. Her job was to help former Imperial species adjust to their new freedom. "The transition is proceeding better than expected," she reported to the Confederation Council. "Most species are embracing their new autonomy." "What about resistance?" asked Commander Bin, who now served as the human representative to the Council. "Minimal. It seems that most Imperial citizens were as tired of the old system as their subjects were." Lieutenant Nara, now Captain Nara of the Confederation Explorer Corps, added her report. "Our joint exploration missions are discovering new worlds and new species. The cooperative approach is yielding better results than the old conquest model. Meanwhile, in hidden facilities throughout former Imperial space, humans like Sol and Hana were working with scientists from dozens of species to develop new technologies. The combination of human ingenuity with alien perspectives was producing innovations that surpassed anything the Empire had achieved. "We've developed faster-than-light communication systems," Hana reported to the Council. "Jump drives that are twice as efficient as Imperial models. Medical technologies that work for all known species.